You ever see an interview and at the end of it you go, what did I just watch? All right. I had that feeling after watching this interview I'm about to show you guys, but probably for a different reason than you might think. All right. I'm going to get right into the video and let you guys see it for yourself. And throughout the video, I'll give my take on different parts of it. Let's get right into it.
Bob Williams, a crack user, called me years ago and asked me to interview him.
The reason I called you was I felt that the story of crack had to be told in such a way that people would see its effect, its devastating effects on the young people of our communities. My own personal experience with crack has been one of, how could I say, complete madness. My first 9 months in using crack, I spent over $50,000, which included...
Say that again, please.
My first 9 months of involvement with crack, I've spent over $50,000.
My first 9 months, I spent over $50,000, and this is in the 80s. I'm not sure where the math goes as far as how much money that is today, but I know it's a lot of money, all right? And notice a couple things about the way that he's talking. You can tell that he's very intelligent, that he's very self-aware, and that he's very direct, okay? And a lot of people who are addicted to drugs, if you've ever been around a lot of people who are abusers of drugs, a lot of times they may struggle with being honest with themselves and being honest with other people because the addiction, has taken control over their mind. But his self-awareness and honesty and analysis of it just floored me because you have to go back to the 80s. The drug was relatively new, so a lot of people didn't know the effects of it. Cocaine was like the drug then, and a lot of celebrities and everybody did that. But crack in itself, many people didn't know the long-term effects of it or how highly addictive it was. And if anything makes me want to spend that kind of money in the first 9 months in the 80s, I don't want to know how good that feels personally, but I'm pretty sure before he ever took the drug, he didn't know how it would affect his life. And he wanted to come to this interview. I think he called up to this place for this interview so that he could bring awareness to it, okay, which I also thought was very interesting. Let's continue.
$50,000.
$50,000.
Where did you get this kind of money from?
Well, some of it was money that I had saved up. I was currently working as an engineer for a communications firm, earning $35,000 a year. I would spend my entire paycheck in one night on crack. So after my pay was gone, I would go to the bank and I started to deplete my savings.
Who turned you on to crack?
An old girlfriend of mine, one evening, had invited me to take a ride with her. And we did so, and she bought some crack. And we went back to her place, and she began to smoke and asked me if I wanted to try it. So at first I was a little bit reluctant, but then I said, all right, well, I'll give it a try. And my very first night, I believe I spent $60. The next morning, I was at the bank's door before it opened, and I spent another $400.
Tell me what it was like, that first blast.
It's unlike anything I've ever experienced in my life. It's really, there's not even any words really to describe it. It's a feeling so intense and so pleasurable that I've seen it cause people to spend their last penny. I've seen people spend their rent money, their food money, their everything.
You mean from that first time you were gone?
Yes. That first hit, to me, was so immense and so unlike anything I'd ever had in my life that I just had to try it again.
Now, that's the honesty that I'm talking about, all right? Now, this is 2024. We know the effects. We know people have pawned their babies off for a hit of it, all right? Now, as someone who grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and half of my family has been wiped away from the crack epidemic. I've seen, I can go to Cleveland now and half of my family is still using it, so, and most of the men in my bloodline are dead, okay, due to this epidemic. So I've seen it firsthand since I was a child, since I was 5, so I know the effects of it, just from my life experience. I've never partaken in it or any drugs for that matter. So I've seen how this affects the community firsthand and what it can do. But this interview, I just really admired his ability to be honest and his willingness to come forward and explain what the drug is doing to the community. Let's go ahead and continue.
Had you ever had any involvement with drugs leading up to that?
Well, having lived in California for a few years and having been with the Hollywood set, I had tried cocaine on occasion. And crack is something that will cause you to put cocaine down.
Yes.
Crack it's so much more of a high to it, so much more of a rush that most people who start using crack usually stop sniffing cocaine.
You make a big distinction between crack and cocaine, don't you?
So to speak, they're really the same drug, but it's how it's administered. Cocaine being sniffed and entering the blood system through the nasal and mucous membranes of the nose. Crack is smoked, inhaled into the lungs, and therefore in 5 to 10 seconds causes an immense rush to the head.
You say the Hollywood set. Without naming names, what kind of scene did you get into out there?
Well, I attended parties in Hollywood where cocaine was passed around in bowls like they were hors d'oeuvres. They were all kinds of different brands of marijuana, reefers, whatever you want to call it.
It sounds like a Rick James party, okay? And cocaine was the thing to do. Back in the 80s, for a lot of people who had money, like comedians, like I think Red Fox and what's the guy that passed, the legendary actor? John Witherspoon was one of them, but I'm not thinking of John Witherspoon. The guy that played Mrs. Doubtfire, I don't know why his name is drawing a blank with me. But anyways, he was a lot of celebrities, and it was the it thing to do back then from, the documentaries I've seen, the movies I've read, the people I've talked to. So when this hit the scene, even in the movie Wolf of Wall Street, there's a scene in that movie where they try it for the first time, and you see Leonardo DiCaprio's eyes and Jonah Hill's, like how they do a really great job of expressing what it feels like to take it. And in my opinion, if it's something that's going to consume your mind and consume your everything about you, it's not worth it. We know that now, but the effects that it has done is unparalleled when you look at the community today, the black community, and just not just the black community, other communities that have been affected by crack and meth and different drugs that people are addicted to.
In 5-pound cigar boxes, and it was just like you were at a party, but the hors d'oeuvres were drugs.
These are active.
Now notice his lips, how he keeps twitching his lips and everything else. This is very indicative of a sign like that. Like I said, I grew up seeing a lot of people, doing. I never sold drugs in my life or anything like that, but I had a lot of family members, and if it wasn't for the foster care system, who knows? I probably would have gotten wiped up in it as well, because I've seen some pretty crazy things. But that's a story for another day.
And actresses.
Yes.
Names. Some named people.
Some named people. Some top-rated shows.
And you just dived right into this whole set.
Well, not really. I just kind of eased into it. And once you do, it was the in thing to do. And all of Hollywood was ablaze with it. So if you didn't, you were more of an outcast, I guess, than if you did.
And then you came back east.
I came back east.
Still hadn't heard about crack yet.
Still hadn't heard about crack yet. I think Richard Pryor's experience was really opened up a lot of people's eyes to what
Richard Pryor was another one.
freebasing was all about. And crack is more so a marketing technique by the pushers. They package it pretty well these days, and it makes it a little bit more appealing. But it's basically the same thing.
And so you say that after that first night,
Robin Williams. Okay, it was going to bother me if I didn't get to it. It was Robin Williams that John Witherspoon was telling a story about how he, I don't know how true it is, but how they were in the limousine together, and John Witherspoon had bought like a lot of coke or whatever, and he let Robin Williams, try to use a little. He sniffed up most of it. He wanted to beat his ass. John, legendary, the comedian, John Witherspoon, tells the story a lot better than I do, but it was funny. He was like, and everybody was shocked, like, he did coke. He was like, and then John looked at the interviewer, he was was like, yeah, he did coke. We all did coke.
$60.
You know, but crack is a different thing.
You went back to the bank the next morning, got
next morning, spent another $400. And my checking account was consistently overdrawn. I would go to the cash machine and take out my maximum for the day. And I would go to the bank and cash a check against money that the bank thought I still had. And my account was constantly overdrawn, and it stayed that way. I'm self-employed now because I've been unable to hold a job. I recently had a job that was paying me $33,000 a year.
Now, notice this man. He comes across as a logical, intelligent, successful man, very, very, very self-aware. But the drug was so powerful, it overshadowed all of that, okay, with this man. All right, just the way I can tell by the way he talks, by the way he conducts himself, by the way he's answering questions, that he comes across as a logical, fair-minded type of person. All right, and even he couldn't shake it. That's how strong it was. And I heard the drugs back then were different. Maybe some of you in the comments section who indulge can educate me on it and let me know. But that's what I heard. It terrified me.
And it lasted 2 weeks. My first 2 weeks.
Wait a minute. Tell me what happened with this job.
Well, I reported to work on Monday. On Tuesday, I made a mistake of stopping at the crack house before I went to work. So I was absent Tuesday. I was absent Wednesday. I figured, well, I better shape up or I won't be here much longer. So Thursday and Friday, I went to work. The following Monday, after a short job I had to do, I said, well, I'll stop for a minute and I'll get one and I'll go back to work. I didn't get back to work till Wednesday. So, of course, by Wednesday, it's... and Friday was my last day.
And this was the $35,000 a year job?
Yes.
With an expense account?
Yes.
Car?
Yes.
And you just blew it.
Just like that.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I have
and this was a couple years before I was born,
a portable skill which I could go out tomorrow and get another job if I wanted to. I feel bad.
Yeah, he's an engineer.
About it. Well, I'm into electronics and telecommunications, and I've been in the telecommunications industry about 9 years now. So when I'm not working full-time for an employer, I work for myself, doing consulting and other jobs, installation.
What specific skill do you have in telecommunications? What do you do?
Well, I'm trained as what they call a switchman. I oversee telephone company electric offices, well, switching systems. When you pick up your telephone and make a phone call, it goes to a central office at the phone company. Well, that piece of equipment at the phone company that does all the switching of these telephone calls is which I maintain. Mm-hmm. The person who tries to work and maintain themselves with a situation such as crack, the two just don't mix. It's like water and oil.
Am I to conclude that you're finished with it?
No, don't conclude that. I probably now, on the average, spend $100 a day.
It's about 2 o'clock now. Have you had any today?
I thought that this question was diabolical, but I love it. You know, like, are you about to go do it now? It's a great question. Don't get me wrong. You know, a lot of people wouldn't have the balls to ask that type of question today, but it was different back then. You know, but this was a really great question. I already knew the answer to it because if you ever met someone who's addicted to that drug, man, they'll sell your microwave, anything to get that next hit. I'm laughing, but it's really, really, really horrific.
Not yet. Not yet. But you can believe when I leave here, it's probably my next stop.
Hey,
that's the honesty I'm talking about. He said, no, I haven't had any today, but when I leave, you best believe I'm about to go get some. Okay. You could see the excitement in his eyes. You know, he didn't look sad about it. He wasn't upset about it. He wasn't even ashamed about it. You don't see any shame on this man, you know, and that's what I thought was very interesting.
Well-educated man. You have some experience in engineering.
Yes.
You have earning power, obviously.
Right.
Why would you be fooling with this stuff? You can stand by and see what's happening to your own life, can't you?
I used to say the same thing. I used to witness people, and even people who were close to me, have their lives destroyed by it. And I used to witness people sit in these places and spend their last penny. And I say to them, how could you do such a thing, you know? But once you have tried it, you become the anchor banker, you understand. It's that much of a feeling or a sensation that it causes. It has wrecked lives, careers, broken up homes. It's just something you can't really describe.
And the curiosity for that feeling has ruined generations, okay? Because not long after this, you know, they criminalized it. They flooded the neighborhood with crack, black neighborhoods, a lot of impoverished neighborhoods, and they locked up, and this started the mass incarceration of a lot of black men in the community, which is why you see the black community the way it is today, with a lot of just women and kids in the household. And there's not a lot of men in comparison to the women to clean up the communities, to restore order, that type of thing. So the family structure is completely broken down in terms of the black community. And a lot of that had to do with the crack epidemic and then the government criminalizing it while also flooding the communities with guns and drugs, because those things are not produced in black neighborhoods. They're brought to that neighborhood. Okay. So that was like a chain effect of what you see today in a lot of communities that are predominantly black.
What kind of shape is your life in now?
Well, I've been a little bit more fortunate than most that I have a roof over my head. Some people who are into crack usually pay their rent months in advance so they don't get evicted, the smart ones.
Wow.
Because believe me, brother, if whatever money you have in your pocket you walk in there with, you're not going to walk out with it. So
how much do you have on you now?
It's the same thing as people who struggle with gambling. You know, they may have $50 to their name, you know, and they have to eat, or they may have a few $100s they got to pay rent. But if they go to a casino, they are going to bet it all on black or blackjack or whatever your poison is, you know. So it's a similar thing. It's not as strong as crack, but it's the mindset of an addict.
A little over $200.
And you're going to blow all of that?
In about an hour and a half.
What's the most you've used in a day?
The most I ever spent was $1,300 in 6 hours.
$1,300?
$1,300 in 6 hours. I can't even describe it. I defy anyone to try and tell me it's the most pleasurable thing that they've ever experienced in their life. However,
I'll take your word for it.
I would never tell anyone to take it. But once they have, I dare them to tell me that it's not the best feeling they've ever had.
By the way, this guy has like the most amazing voice I've ever heard. That's just me, though.
You love it, don't you?
Well, I don't know if I'd say I'd love it, but...
I mean, the honesty, the way he expresses his experience, you can tell. I mean, just from the interview, he seemed like a good guy, you know, that made a horrible decision. Maybe the woman, I don't know if he went further into the story where he said that he did it with a woman. Maybe she introduced him to it, or he was trying to impress her. And then that one mistake ruined the rest of his life.
Well, if it's the best feeling you've ever had, you know what most people automatically think.
Right.
And it's better than that?
Yes.
And if it's better than that, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to know what's better than that.
It's better than that.
Then you must love it.
Wow.
It's nice.
Now, I'm going to come down hard on you. Crack has made you its punk, hasn't it? It's got you running. It's got your nose open.
Right.
And it's your master.
Yeah.
You know, he admits it.
You admit that, just like that.
Sure. Some people won't. I know a lot of people who are undercover crack users or in the closet, but I have no qualms about saying that.
Now, one funny thing is, you know, I won't say any names to embarrass them. I have family members who've been doing crack since the 80s. They're still alive today and still do it today. They've been doing it since the 80s. And they used to babysit me. And they are the funniest, most outgoing people you'll ever meet. You may not even know that they do it. Okay, they're immune. I don't know what's up with their immune system, all right, but it needs to be studied, okay? But they are cool. You see them at the grocery store, all right? But they still, and then there's other people I know that you can catch them walking down the street downtown in the middle of the night, you know, looking for that next lick so that they can go by, so they can get another fix. It affects different people different ways. It's a very interesting thing because there's different levels to the way people, and I know people, I've heard of people who have tried it and they were able to quit it pretty easily. All right, it's a really, really, really interesting topic.
Do you know anybody who uses crack and controls crack rather than vice versa?
No. Crack is the boss. They will make you crack up. Crack is the boss. When you take that hit, that second voice that starts talking to you is now in control. You're not yourself anymore.
That's right. When a woman will give away her baby, you know she's not herself. All right.
Up in the morning and that's the first thing you think about?
Sometimes I dream about it.
In going to these crack houses, you've probably seen some horror stories. You probably have a whole list of them, don't you?
Well, unfortunately, I do. And I've seen some people as young as, I would say, probably 16, 17 years old. I have been in a crack house on occasion where a young girl came in with her father, and she couldn't have been no more than 16, 17 years old. And she says, no, Daddy, it's my turn to buy. I've been in a crack house where I saw a girl in a Catholic school uniform come in, and she couldn't have been no more than 16 or 17 years old. And she bought some cracks and left. And she didn't even go home and change clothes for her, so he didn't even send someone else for her. She came herself. I've seen telephone repairmen, equipment and all, in crack houses. I've seen security guards in crack houses. I've seen transit workers in uniform in crack houses. And I guess it disturbs them not to be there because they are there sitting, smoking away. I've seen people come from New Jersey, go to a crack house, gas tank on empty, and can't even get home. I've seen people go to lunch and never go back to work. I personally have smoked crack in Harlem Hospital in the ladies' room with a girlfriend of mine who used to work there. I've seen women who will come to a crack house with their children and have them wait outside, 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Have the children wait outside?
Wait outside. Children 4, 5, and 6 years old are standing outside waiting for their mothers, and their mothers are inside smoking on this crack. I've seen a girl one day brought her baby to the crack house, and she was in such a rush to get high that she couldn't wait 20 minutes to cash her check. She pawned her child to the crack man and says, please give me a dime. I'll be back in 20 minutes, hold my baby.
Pawned her child?
Yes, for $10.
Bob Williams died not long after the interview I did with him.
I thought that ending was pretty crazy when they just said he just died. They didn't say why he died, but when you look at this guy who was very intelligent, very successful, and his life was wasted, still relatively young, and all because of one decision. And I'm not placing any judgment because, again, we all do different things for different reasons. We all have a different path to take, but I just admired his honesty and his him just being straightforward, his analysis. And it's like even though he had no desire to quit the drug, he wanted to make everyone aware of what it's doing to everyone and how it's affecting the community. And just thought it was a pretty interesting interview, and I wanted to share that with you guys. Every once in a while, I try to learn something new every day. And while I didn't learn a whole lot about this interview, it did give me a different perspective because it's something, like I said, it's a thing of my past. I've seen it my whole life, but not my whole life, my childhood. In my childhood, my adult life, I've stayed pretty clear from drugs. But if you guys like the video, you like this type of content, do me a big favor, like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. And let me know what your thoughts is. Get the conversation started below. And let me know what you think on this interview and your take on this whole subject matter. And I appreciate you guys for watching and hope you have a great day. Peace.